Yeah, it's always an adventure with Mike. One time we were on a plane, and we sat across each other from the aisle, and Mike was sitting next to this lady, and when they served drinks or something, she bought, I guess it was a beer? I forgot what it was, alcohol or beer or something. And so then I guess she had to go up to the ladies' room or something. She said, "Here, Mr. Kenley, would you hold this?" And so, wish I had a picture of that one. Well, originally...
I want to tell them I was sharing the gospel with her, too.
Yeah. That's right. That's true.
Why she needed the beer?
It was just humorous as it can be with Mike. This is also was going to be something related to missions. And the pastor asked me if I would share two supported groups that I'm with. And so that's what I want to do. But before I get there, I want to give a little background as I've thought about missions and how we think about missions. Usually, when we have talks on missions, we go to Matthew 28:19-20. And so if we look at that text, it says, "Go therefore and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, teaching them to observe all things that I have commanded you." And in some of the translations, they have, "Lo, I am with you always." Actually, that's a powerful Greek term. He's saying, stop, look at what I'm saying to you. I am with you always, even to the end of the age. So he gives the Great Commission, but he gives comfort, because the Great Commission has caused people to be killed, to be persecuted, and so on. And so we need that comfort. I am with you always to the end of this church age. The other thing that's interesting is in the Great Commission, there's pretty in-depth theology to it. He says, "Go and make disciples of all nations." I want to comment about that diversity, to all nations. Well, I want to show you what's involved in that statement. Baptizing them in the name of the Father, of the Son, and the Holy Spirit. That's a fully developed doctrine of the Trinity. And so it's a very high-level theology that he is charging the church with. And we can have some attitudes, I know, about missions and our own personal involvement in that. Is why bother? We already have the revelation. But if that's our attitude, we have to think, how do we get the revelation? We got it because somebody else took it to us. We got it because missionaries translated the Bible into our language. So we owe our possession of this book to people who basically were missionaries. The other thing is, I wanted to go through a little bit about what this book is. In talking to some of the students at Liberty, I was trying to, this week, have them appreciate, because we quickly think of this as a book. The world thinks of it, oh, that's a little religious book. It's really not a book. It's a library. And we have to think about this. There are 40 different authors writing 66 pieces of literature. This isn't a book. This is a library. And that is significant because this library was created in history by sequential revelations. And the revelations came in 3 different languages: Hebrew, Aramaic, and Greek. So we've got 40 people writing 66 pieces of literature in 3 different languages over 1,500 years. So think of this a minute. Can you think of any library that was written over 1,500 years that has internal consistency that the Bible has? You will never find it. This is a unique library in church history. And more than that, it is made of people from every social level. You have small businessmen like Amos and some of the prophets in the Old Testament. They were sheep herders. Some of the disciples were. Abraham was a rancher. So there were business people, small business, large business. Abraham evidently had a large business. We have people from every walk of life, all the way up to Daniel, who was next basically to a global ruler. Incidentally, the King of Kings expression that is used, we often use it of Jesus. If you watch in the scriptures, the phrase King of Kings didn't start with Jesus. It started with the pagan rulers. And it was a designation not just of a nation, but a designation of an empire. That's why it says King of Kings, the big king over the little kings. And that's the early example of globalism, which we'll get to in a moment. The result of thinking about this as a library instead of just thinking about it as a book means that when we look at it, we're looking at a sequence of events. And it's important when we do anything in the Bible, we have to think about, in the sequence of events, when did this thing happen? Did it happen early, or did it happen midway? Did it happen later? And this caused a lot of confusion in the Bible translation among missionaries. I remember a professor friend of mine who, I guess he must have spent 25 years of his life arguing with Bible translators. And the point was that it was customary to translate the Bible into a third world language by using an easy book. And they would always say, well, we'll just use the Gospel of Mark. It's short and it's relatively simple to translate. The problem with it is, think of the sequence of events. Is Mark near the beginning or near the end? It's near the end. And he's starting to talk about Jesus. If you can't start with a Jesus story, because Jesus is God incarnate. So we have to understand the creator-creature distinction. We have to understand, why did he come into this world? To die. Die for what? Because of the fall. So in thinking that sequence, there isn't one thing in the scripture that doesn't presuppose a literal creation and a literal fall. That has profound implications. The fact that there's a created creature means intellectually we're dealing with omniscience and finite mentality. As Christians, we have to be humble. We are humble, finite creatures underneath an eternally existing creator. He is the one who knows everything. We will never know everything. And therefore, that gives him the authority. And therefore, if we're going to be humble and not arrogant, we have to submit to his authority and bracket what we think in terms of the big picture of the Bible. So when we deal with missions, we then need to ask, why do we need missions? Wasn't it true that in Noah's day, everybody got off the boat with the same Bible? Genesis 1 to 9, they knew, and they spread out throughout the world. Well, not exactly. God told them, I want you to fill the earth. And of course, we now appreciate why he told people to spread, is because right after the flood, there was tectonic disturbances. The earth was very shaky, had the first ice age, according to most of our creation scientists today, after the flood. And so when the ice age came, the oceans went down, something like 300 or 400 feet, lowered sea level, and that meant what? It meant that people could walk across from Asia to Alaska. It meant that people could go over to Australia. That's why we have marsupials only on the Australian subcontinent. And wonder, well, what did they do? They just evolved there? No. They took the only few marsupials that they had on the ark, and they happened to all go over to Australia. So there are explanations for these kind of things if will take seriously the fact that this is a historic library of revelation that must be understood in sequence. And God is the great teacher. It's pedagogical sequence. Lesson 1, Lesson 2, Lesson 3, and Lesson 4. And one of the things I tried to show to the students at Liberty this week, if you master this basic idea of pedagogical sequence through the Scripture, it enables you to think through quickly. And you've got to learn to think through quickly, because in our day, we're getting hit from all kinds of things. But all these kind of things emanate from arrogance. It emanates from an intellectual arrogance that basically says we can understand things. Now, where did all that came from? Well, it came from the fall. But what happened after Noah received his covenant with God, and God told people to go out? Don't stay in one place, go out. So we have virtually a second fall when it comes to the Tower of Babel. The Tower of Babel is a profound thing that we need to understand, because the thinking that went into Babel is the thinking that is with us today with the glory. It has not changed for 4,000 years. It's still the attitude that we, fallen, corruptible people with finite understanding, have the inner capacity to rule the world. And it's expressed in Genesis chapter 11 this way. It says, we will gather together and we will make a tower that reaches to the heavens. That's the technology of the day. So now they're going to use the technology of the day, and then they say this, a powerful verse right in the middle of that narrative. We will make a name for ourselves. Now, making a name for yourselves is you're defining your identity. It's saying to you that we will define our whole existence. It's a comprehensive claim. It's not just we will name ourselves. We will make our name for ourselves. Now, it's interesting, if you write that sentence down, we will make a name for ourselves, and then just read the next chapter. In chapter 12, God talks to Abraham, and what does he say to Abraham? I will make your name great. So it's almost a defiant act that God starts with Abraham, and from that point, somewhere around 2000 BC, all revelation comes through the Jews. Revelation is not given to the Asians, it's not given to the Europeans, it's not given to the Africans. Revelation is going from that time in 2000 BC, it will always come through the Jews, because the Jews are a chosen, and that's not a race, a chosen ethnicity. By the way, it's something else we were talking about with some of the students. This business of racism and races. Race is not a plural noun. Race biblically is a singular noun. And it was Darwin, with his evolution, that wrote Origin of Species. If you get a copy, one of the older copies of that book, look at what the sequence of the title is. The origin of the species, and it's basically expressing the progress of the superior races against the primitive races. That's where the plural comes. And it's an evolutionary illusion. There's only one race called the human race. Every time I get one of these surveys, are you Caucasian, are you Latino, I feel like writing, I am a human. Because it's a misunderstanding. The proper word is ethnicity. There are ethnicities. Now, why are there ethnicities? It's because at Babel, God said, enough is enough. I am going to see to it that you are frustrated for the rest of history. Every time you try to get globalism, it will result in nationalism. You will be split, and I'll force you to be split by messing up with your language. So now we have different people groups speaking different languages, and people naturally gravitate together. So that's how the word nations and ethnicity started. It's a curse. It's a curse upon the human race to prevent globalism. Okay, now as we come to the end of the scriptures, we go from Babel, we go from Abraham all the way down to the book of Revelation. In Revelation chapter 5, verses 9 to 10, we have this dramatic scene in heaven where God is, the angels show a scroll, and it's sealed. And the heaven stops, so to speak. Who is qualified to break the seals on this parchment? And no one can be found at first. And John's and the angels, the people are depressed. But then finally, a lamb that was slain comes forward. And he is alone qualified to break the seals, which means it starts the tribulational judgments. But here's the song that is sung by the elders. And most scholars believe the 24 elders here represent the church after the church has been raptured. And here's what they sing. You are worthy to take the scroll, to open its seals for you were slain. And here's the thing that has to do with missions. You were slain and have redeemed us to God by your blood. And watch this, out of every tribe and language and people and nation, and have made us kings and priests to our God, and we shall reign on earth. What is that expressing? It's expressing that in the church age, after Jesus, the Messiah, was rejected by Israel, Israel was not ended. Israel was set aside, and a new age started, the church age. And during the church age, what God is doing is he's drawing out loyalists to the king from every nation and tribe, so that when the church age ends, there will be a representation of the entire human race. Won't be some missing. Every major group will have representation in the church. The church is not a nation. The church is an international body of loyalists to the king. And we want to see that that's why missions are needed. And I've often wondered why missionary people don't go to Revelation 5. Because what Revelation 5 says, the church age is not going to be done until what? Until we have representations of loyalists to Jesus Christ from every tribe, every language, every people, and every nation. So you can't get there if there's not missions. So that fits, that kind of wraps around the whole issue of missions. Now I want to move to the two groups that I am with. One is Chafer Seminary, and our pastor was just saying about how many pastors are resigning from the ministry. We see that every day. I think every month we get a letter from a church saying we need a pastor, we need one of fundamental persuasion that has a free grace theology. Do you have somebody? And we're just basically starting with a very small school, and we don't have one for every letter that shows up. So we're very sensitive to that. And our theme at Chafer Seminary is 2 Peter 2:2. Here's what 2 Peter 2:2 says. Paul is talking to Timothy, and he says, the things that you have heard from me among many witnesses. By the way, notice Paul carried witnesses with him. Luke was a witness. Paul came, he had many witnesses. I committed these things. I want you to commit the things I have taught you to faithful men. So now we've got the apostle, we've got Timothy. Now he wants Timothy to train men. Then the sentence continues. To faithful men who will be able to teach others also. So now there's four layers. There's the apostle, there's Timothy, and then Timothy is supposed to teach and prepare teachers. And then those guys are supposed to prepare teachers. There's supposed to be continuity. And you need them, because if the body is going to be big enough, you've got to have enough people to teach. So the question is, if a pastor retires, if he declines in health and has to leave the pulpit, if he's called to another ministry, or if he dies, like we all die, if that happens and the pulpit is empty, the question we have to ask is, who is going to teach our children and who is going to teach our grandchildren? The Bible and the Christian faith presumes literacy. And It's not a closed thing like pagan religions where they have a priesthood out, in a monastery somewhere, speaking a language that nobody else understands. The gospel is wide open, and it wants people to know and to understand it. So we got a problem, though. We have a problem with seminaries, and here's the problem. Christian schools don't last long. If you think of the great universities in our country, Harvard was formed, they used to have this great wall, all clear, and know the truth and the truth will make you free. My son goes on DOD business a lot, and so he happened to go by the Harvard wall, and he says, Dad, you can't even see it now. It's got ivy growing all over it. So that's Harvard. Yale was formed because Harvard was going apostate, and then Yale collapsed. Princeton was started, and the first president of Princeton was one of the three most brilliant men that America ever produced, Jonathan Edwards, the man who said, sinners in the hands of an angry God. He was the first president of Princeton Seminary, Princeton School. And you can see Princeton today. So the problem is that these schools, Christian schools, start off great, but finally, after about a century, the theology goes to pot. Well, why is that? Well, it's the fact that we're corrupted. It's hard to keep that kind of a school going. So, what eventually happens in these schools, and seminaries are part of the problem, is you have a few professors that get, I guess, deceived into critical thinking. Now, we always hear critical race theory, but critical thinking went long before critical race theory. Critical thinking basically is the affirmation of man's sufficient capacity to discern truth without revelation. We are going to be independent of any dependency on the Creator. We don't even believe we have a God who speaks into history. And if we do, we're not going to pay attention to him anyway. So that's one of the problems. And one of the unknown things about our country that kind of illuminates this problem, if you look at the 1700s in American history, you'll see there was a Great Awakening. It's called the First Great Awakening. You go to the 1800s and you see the Second Great Awakening. You come to the 1900s, there's no Great Awakening. What happened in the 1900s? Well, there's a section of American history that's always omitted. You'll never hear about this in school. It's called the Fundamentalist Modernist controversy. And here is where we had liberals taking advantage. They go to Germany, they get their PhD, they come to America, they start influencing the schools, influence the denominations. And during the time, say, from the World War I on through the 30s, 1930s, every major denomination, except perhaps you could say the Southern Baptist denomination, every other denomination was taken over by liberals that denied the authenticity of Scripture. That means, what did we do? That we lost every theological library. We lost campuses. When you lose the library, you lose your reference materials. So this was what happened. And the fundamentalists are usually thought of to be these weirdos in storefront churches waving their hands. Well, that's not true. The fundamentalists were godly scholars who wrote a series of books, and I have all series of those books. They wrote a series of books defining what we mean by creation, what we mean by the fall, what we mean by the virgin birth, and what we mean by atonement on the cross. And they were defending this. They were not ignorant people. For example, the man who wrote the fundamentalist position on the Old Testament, Robert Dick Wilson, was decided early on in his life, he said, I want to divide my adult life into 3 15-year periods of time. The first 15 years, I want to learn every single Oriental ancient language that the critics are using to attack the Scriptures. The second 15 years, I'm going to interact with them, and the third 15 years, I'm going to publish books that will undercut their position. These are not stupid people. They were scholars that were submitting to the authority of Scripture. Yet, here's a quote from a New Testament scholar in the United Kingdom that time, Kersap Lake. He taught at Harvard. He wrote a book called, and listen to the title, The Religion of Yesterday and Tomorrow. Well, you can guess what the religion of yesterday is. That's fundamental theology like we believe. So we have the religion of yesterday. And then the religion of tomorrow is the unity. We'll get Christians together with everybody and we'll worship the one idea of God. Well, he wrote this, but it was a warning to his students at Harvard that were in his theology class. And here's what he told them. He said, "It is a mistake often made by educated persons who happen to have but little knowledge of historical theology to suppose that fundamentalism is a new and strange form of thought. It is nothing of the kind. It is the partial," and then he did his little thing, "partial and uneducated survival of a theology," listen to what he says, "of a theology which was once universally held by all Christians. The fundamentalist may be wrong, I think he is, but it is we liberals who have departed from the tradition, not he. And I feel sorry for anyone who tries to argue with the fundamentalists on the basis of authority. The Bible and the corpus theologum of the church is on the fundamentalist side." So that should give you confidence that we are not some religion of yesterday. We are the only ones that have captured and keep on believing the way the church once did. So how do you keep a seminary orthodox? One of the things we thought about was in the Bible you don't read about theology professors leading the church. You read about pastors leading the church. So we started thinking, how do we keep pastors in charge of the seminary? Well, one way we do that is every person on the faculty, adjunct or otherwise, has to have either pastoral or actual missionary activity. Has to be active in that at least one time in his life. Then we have to partner with local churches. So, for example, if someone takes a course here at Fellowship Chapel, Mike has the right to see everything that person is learning. And therefore, he can watch, is this professor a renegade? Is he following the doctrinal creed? So it puts him in charge. It keeps, in other words, the seminary under the control of the pastors. The other thing is, we wanted to have it long before COVID, we wanted it available on the internet. And the reason why we did that, and that's not necessarily the best way, because nothing it really is the same as face-to-face. But the advantage that has is a student who wants to go for a master's of theology, it can take 4 or 5 years, doesn't have to take his wife and kids and move to some campus somewhere, having to fiddle around getting part-time jobs here and there to finance his education. He can stay right in his local church and do whatever he was doing financially in that church. And he can, as he learns material, he can apply it with practical ministry. So there's a number of things that we've tried to do. That usually reduces the cost by about 60% of what they would normally spend if they went to a particular campus. Well, that's Chafer Seminary. We're just growing. We first started mostly with older men who just wanted to learn some Bible and maybe be Sunday school teachers. But that's not what we were hoping for. We were hoping we'd get young men who would be committed to learning and being pastors for life. Finally, we're getting those. It's almost like COVID forced the issue here. but we've got young men now really serious about going. I'm tutoring one right now for his master's degree, and he already has a church in a town in Texas. So that's Chafer Seminary. I'll just move on quickly to the ministry that I have, the Bible Framework Ministry. This got started because I watched university students from Christian homes who knew the Bible go to a classroom, and then certain professors on university campuses have an art form, sort of a sport, and that is Christian bashing. And I would watch these kids just melt under this constant harassment. Every subject would be presented, and then some little remark about the Bible would be made. And even though these young people knew parts of the Bible, what they were unable to do was to see where this person was coming from, take his view, and encapsulate it in the big picture of the Bible. In other words, if I can phrase it this way, when you have an issue, or I have an issue, what we need to be able to do is surround that issue with a biblical worldview, and don't let that issue consume us and put the Bible inside its worldview. This is strategy. Which worldview is going to be the worldview that evaluates the other one? Is it going to be the Bible, or is the Bible going to get absorbed into an alien worldview? That's the struggle. And one way we've taught that is to go through the Bible pedagogically. I mean, the first four events of the Bible that shape the rest of the whole Bible are easy to remember: creation, fall, flood, and covenant. And that sets up the whole basis of everything else that happens. So if you know just those basic events, and you know the truths of those events, because if you know those events like the flood, it's easy for you to imagine what it must have been like. It's easy for you to imagine when the angel tells Mary, 17-year-old girl, that you're pregnant. And Mary surely knows what that means socially. So it's easy. We know what that experience is like. So it's a real event that really happened to a real person in a real space and time. And when we learn the virgin birth and what that means, we can connect it to the girl. And so that's every event's like that. And so basically what this is nothing really profound about it. It's just a way of thinking a way through Scripture. So let me give some examples of how to use this thing. Mission. When we go out into the workplace, we're surrounded with profoundly anti-biblical things. For example, woke-dominated environment, where employees of different companies have to go and spend 2 or 3 hours fiddling around with a woke lecture on why every employee needs to understand diversity, inclusion, and equity in business. And you will, if you are a supervisor, make sure those 3 things are on the docket, and you do those with your employees. Well, if that is true, then as one young engineer student, that's the son of one of my students, told his company when they started this messing with him, he said, because he was a young man, he had potential, and he was well known as an engineer in that firm, he said, here's my resignation. Went to his boss. And his boss, what? We trying to keep you here. Why are you angry at the company? And he said, I'm not angry at the company. I'm just saying that you are compelling me to deny my faith when I walk through this door. And I am not about to deny my Christian faith when I come in here to do my work. I do my work as unto the Lord. And that's important for my work ethic that you ought to appreciate. And so that caused enough so that in this company, it happens to be a very well-known company, they are having meetings right now among their staff. We weren't even aware we were doing that. That's right. It's not evil people doing this. It's just they don't think about it. And suddenly when somebody challenges them, you are requiring me to deny my faith when I walk in that door? Well, I never thought about that. And so that's one of the tensions, see, we face as Christians. Here's another one. And here's where missions really start. Missions start with mom and dad. They start with grandma and grandpa. Because you know what? If we don't evangelize the young people, the church will be dead in one lifetime. Freedom and truth only exist if it can be passed to the next generation. Every mom and every dad is a missionary. And here's the problem. Here's an article in a law journal. There must be legal and constitutional limits on the ability of homeschooling parents to teach their children idiosyncratic and illiberal beliefs and values. Government control must be exercised against parents who want to teach against the Enlightenment. Parental control over children's basic education, listen to this, flows from the state to the family. States delegate power over children's basic education to parents. And this is another article. These are all in law journals, and the reason this is important, if it's in the law journal, judges today are swamped. The dockets are full. Guess what happens when the judge has a case? He starts rummaging around what the law journal says, because he doesn't have time to do a lot of the thinking himself. He has to make snap judgments. That, you know, you got a judgment, you got a case coming here, you got to do something about it, judge. So he's going to go and look at these law journals. So here's another quote. This essay explores the choice many traditionalist Christian parents, both fundamentalist and evangelical, make to leave public schools in order to teach their children at home, thus in most instances escaping meaningful oversight. Society, and listen to this, this is so clear, this lady understands what she's talking about. Society need not and should not tolerate the inculcation of absolutist views that undermine toleration of differences. If a parent subscribes to an absolutist belief system premised on the notion it was handed down by a creator, that it is etched in stone, I mean, guess what an image that is of? If that's so, and all other systems are wrong, the essential lessons of a civic education are deeply challenging. Such private truths have no place in the public arena, including public schools. So are we involved in missions? You bet. Every Christian family is involved in missions. And we all have to do our job as we try to do that. So anyway, BFM is trying to teach people how to think through these things when they get happening. And one little side comment on this, those of us who have been going to the biblical citizenship class, remember we saw the monument that's in Plymouth? You see on the top of the monument, what was there? Lady Faith. And what was the picture? This is depicting the thinking of the Plymouth colony. And here's this woman. In her left hand, she's holding the Bible, and in her right hand, she's pointing up. You couldn't have a more graphic illustration of the biblical worldview. It comes out of the Bible, and it brings us into a relationship with God. And the 1619 project of the New York Times, where they want to rewrite American history, guess which colony they start with? Jamestown. Wrong. Jamestown, that was a mess. Theologically, the pastor there tried to get these people straightened out. These people were so stupid they couldn't grow crops. They were English gentlemen coming here for the New World. And it was just a disaster. And new research has shown that those so-called slaves that came to Jamestown were indentured servants because they had no laws of slavery and they had their freedom after they worked so many years. And one of them became an outstanding businessman. So the whole idea of Jamestown is wrong. What they don't want to do is they didn't want to make Plymouth Colony the source of American rights. Why? Oh gosh, there's got Bible there. And so, see how things are selected? And see how we have to understand history? We can point out this is fabricated history. You are so theologically inept, you don't understand what was going on in Jamestown, and you avoided Plymouth, and probably because you knew darn well what would happen if you did emphasize Plymouth. So we face all these challenges, and my conclusion here is every one of us is involved in missions. It's not just the people in missionary areas. So we just have to trust the Lord to help us, give us guidance. Mike.
Charlie was speaking that a movie called The National Treasure, and of course some of that's all intertwined and intertwined, and Charlie really is to us a national treasure and an incredible blessing. Charlie, thank you so much, and we are exceedingly abundantly blessed, and I guess you guys can kind of see where, with me being able to spend time with Charlie, how blessed I have really been over these years. I would encourage you, there is some information on the Biblical Framework Ministries downstairs. Along the hallway, we have some missions displays. We want to try to get those in a more visible place, but there are some pamphlets on Biblical Framework Ministries. So I would really encourage you to explore some of that. You can go to the website. For us as parents, grandparents, it's just an incredible framework to sort of set up how to view, and then the things and the themes Charlie's bringing up now, it's so powerful, so applicable to us as we kind of navigate these times. So thank you so much, Charles.